Jonathan Marshall does a great job covering college hoops as well as the NBA, contributing writer for a bunch of outlets and does radio down there in Texas, and kind enough to join us for a couple of moments. How you been, pal?
Q, my man, I've been pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I just want you to know, first and foremost, this conversation is being recorded.
I appreciate you not breaking guy code and letting me know what's going on.
Yeah, please don't. What were your first thoughts when you heard about this, D'Angelo Russell and the Young story, as far as recording and talking about the potential of infidelities, this, that, the other thing? I mean, you really talk about breaking the just every code among the streets, among the guys, among friends. I mean, that's a bad job all around there.
Yeah, I mean, I can't sign off on what young D'Angelo Russell did. There's no excuse for that. I mean, you have to know better at a certain point. I mean, he's a professional right now, and you have to know that just wasn't cool. Like you said, the code of the streets, professional code. I mean, that's not cool at all. I mean, if we're having a conversation and I have confidence that this is just between you and I, and then I come to find out you actually secretly recorded it, whether it's audio or video. I mean, that's just foul. And D'Angelo is going to have to live with this. I mean, for the rest of his career, more than likely. Now, yes, winning does cure all. Winning does have a tendency to give amnesia to folks, but in our reality, this will be a running joke for D'Angelo, and it's something he'll have to probably have to deal with for his career. No,
listen, I think you said it perfectly. At the end of the day, it's going to be one of those. Yeah, he was a good player, but wasn't he the guy that did this or that? Or I mean, look, people think of Chuck Knobloch, always had the yips, wasn't able to throw the first, and then they remember that he turned around and threw in the stands and hit somebody in the head. I mean, so it's when you look at D'Angelo Russell, you're looking at a guy, good point guard, but did this. I mean, if you're Kobe Bryant, you cannot wait for the season to end. I mean, if he's not already mentally checked out, bags packed, ready to just call it a career, I mean, and you almost feel bad because it's been a circus, but hey, at the end of the day, he wanted to stick around for another year, and they kind of knew they were going through a transitional stage with bad play and young players, but man, I'll tell you, he's counting down the days before the season ends.
I mean, you have a team with Roy Hibbert, Metta World Peace, a.k.a. Ron Artest, Nick Young, whose nickname is Swaggy P. I mean, what are you expecting if you're Kobe? So if I'm Kobe, I would have been called it a career and just relaxed.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of messes, how about the New York Knicks? I mean, you talk about another team that can't wait for the season, and then we come to find that Phil Jackson is just hanging out, maybe vacationing, finding himself, enjoying himself. He is on vacation, but the mess that's going on in New York, and the whole idea was when they gave Carmelo Anthony the huge contract, I was not in favor of it. Yeah, you knew he was a scorer. It's not his team anymore. You can't build around Melo. You can build around Porzingis. The issue I have with the Knicks is you need to go out and why not go after Thibodeau? Why not even go back after Jeff Van Gundy? Two very good coaches. I mean, I think it just starts at the top. They have absolutely no leadership. You have no idea what Phil Jackson is doing or what he's getting paid to do. And then as far as their coaching carousel over the last decade, I mean, it's just been a revolving door.
Yeah, if I'm a Knicks fan, I'm definitely confused. I'm definitely frustrated. I mean, because you look at this roster, yes, there's Porzingis, but what other rising young talent do you have? All your money is invested into Carmelo Anthony, who at this point in his career, he is what he is. I don't see any more improvements, any more growth in his game. He's a great scorer, but that's about it. So, I mean, you cannot build a winning franchise around a guy like Carmelo Anthony. Kristaps Porzingis is the future, but in that regard, who are you surrounding him with? When Carmelo was long gone, I mean, what else do you have? You're going to be strapped for cash. You're not going to be able to add anything. You don't have any draft picks in this year's draft, which is something that I don't think people are even realizing. So you're having a horrible season, but you don't even get to have the benefit of a horrible season with the lottery pick. So that's another issue that the Knicks are going to have to deal with. How are you going to replenish this roster with young talent to accompany a Porzingis? So, I mean, they're pretty much stuck. Unless Carmelo waives his no-trade clause, I don't see how this team makes that big of a jump over the next couple of years.
That's not happening. He loves playing in New York, and think about the brand and the endorsements. I don't see that happening. You bring up a great point regarding draft picks, and I think a lot of people also forget this. If you have no draft picks. And, the Knicks used to be a free agent destination. And that's when they had the Van Gundys, they had the Rileys of the world. That, whether it was getting a guy like Derek Harper, whether it was getting a guy like Xavier McDaniel, Larry Johnson, back in the day when the game was different, it still is, you would think, top 5 market. But as far as the franchise, it's laughed upon. I mean, we sit here and we look at what other teams are doing, like the Nets or the 76ers. Look, the Knicks are just as bad. I don't care what anyone says. They're just as bad. Hey, I want to move on real quick while I have you for a couple of moments. Last night, go from bad to great. And San Antonio with the win last night. Golden State with the win. You just can't beat them. I mean, they're down by 3. They're going to miss 3. Livingston gets the rebound, kicks it back out, I think Thompson. He nails it. They go into overtime. Curry gets you 31, and they win again. I mean, I just don't – we say it every week, and I know it's getting redundant. I don't see a team beating them in a 7-game series, not even San Antonio.
I would have to agree, Q. I mean, like you said, we've talked about them, and we've sung their praises throughout the year. And, I mean, the one thing that really stands out to me about Golden State, I mean, at every big game this year, whether it was the OKC games, the Cleveland games, the San Antonio games, the last one they lost, obviously, but they've always risen to the occasion. We saw even last night with the Utah squad with very much a lot to play for. They're fighting for a playoff spot. They're in Utah. They had every reason to just say whatever. I mean, we probably already clinched home court advantage. We have no reason to play. But these guys pulled it out, a tough win in overtime, which is probably their toughest game throughout. I mean, just looking at the rest of the remaining schedule, it's probably the toughest game that they have left. So I think if anybody doubts their mental resolve in the playoffs in a 7-game series, I think last night definitely showed that. And these guys, they're talented, they're versatile. But what we're seeing, guys like Draymond and Steph and Klay Thompson and Andre Iguodala, I mean, these guys are mentally strong. There was the controversy about Draymond Green and what he said in OKC. Those guys have risen above that. We haven't seen any nonsense coming out of the locker room. Nobody's recording video. Nobody's unfollowing the team on Twitter. There's none of that nonsense going on. I mean, these guys are focused in on repeating as champs. And, I mean, right now, I don't see how you can deny them that.
And here's another scary thought, too. They still play San Antonio twice, so technically still not that top seed is locked up. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they have an opportunity here. If they turn around and win 5 out of their last 7, they'll break the Bulls' mark of 72-10 back in 95-96. I think nothing less than winning the championship again. No one's going to remember that they were 72-10. But to me, 36-0 at home, and then, oh, by the way, San Antonio's 38 at home. Why does it seem that any other year you're talking about San Antonio being having, again, a great season, an all-time great season? Is it, even though the Warriors are 5 games better, are they really 10, 15 games better than San Antonio? And that's why everyone kind of, to me, San Antonio is almost like the second fiddle here. It's all about the Warriors, and rightfully so, but I just think a team that's 63-12, it's almost like they're talked about like an afterthought.
I mean, it is, when you put it that way, Q, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, San Antonio's undefeated at home. I mean, they're putting together an impressive run as well. And they can still lock up that top seed depending on how the rest of these games go. And they do have Golden State twice. But I just think, I mean, it's just true Spurs fashion. I mean, every year, regardless of if there's a Golden State team taking all the spotlight or if San Antonio is the top team in the Western Conference record-wise, I mean, San Antonio is just always below the radar. I mean, when you're comparing the two teams, which team are you more likely to watch? It's Golden State. Who is getting all the national commercials? Who's getting all the articles, the national headlines? I mean, it's Golden State. San Antonio is just comfortable in playing the second fiddle. I mean, they have no issue with that. And I don't think Golden State is 10, 15 games better. I mean, I think Golden State is a better team, but I think record-wise, those teams are pretty tight. And I think that series would go 7 games, but I give Golden State the edge because San Antonio would have to be forced to play up to Golden State's pace, and I don't know if they can keep up with that in a 7-game series. That's the only reason I give Golden State that edge.
Yeah, Golden State, younger, hungrier team, even though they've already won a title as recent as last year. And, of course, San Antonio, I don't want to say long in the tooth, but a veteran team where you think exactly maybe a 7-game series. Some of those young guys, the wear and tear can't handle it. As far as you're talking about 2 desperate teams, and again, a couple minutes with Jonathan Marshall on a Thursday. We'll take you up to 2 o'clock straight up. I think a real fascinating game tonight, Houston and Chicago, and it's a rarity that the Rockets missed the playoffs, but I look at the Chicago Bulls, and I think the worst mistake that franchise made was getting rid of Tom Thibodeau because he brought out he just kind of got guys to play above and beyond. When you look at some of these players, even Joakim Noah turned around and was like, hey, listen, I played better basketball basically under Thibodeau, and that was a defensive-minded team. It was a hard-nosed team, not a soft team, and then they're still a little nicked up. Moore might not play tonight. Rose has the left elbow contusion. If they don't make the playoffs, is that a colossal disappointment for the Chicago Bulls this year?
It has to be. I mean, you're looking at this roster. I mean, you have Jimmy Butler, you have D. Rose, Paul Gasol, Noah, Taj Gibson. I mean, this is a talented roster. I mean, you can't tell me Indiana has a better lineup. You can't tell me some of these teams above them have a better lineup, top to bottom. And this is a team that just not too long ago was talking about Eastern Conference championship and playing for a championship overall for the league. So, I mean, this has to be a colossal flop for Chicago. And I definitely agree. I mean, they've obviously lost their identity, bringing in a Fred Hoiberg, who we thought would open up the offense more, which was a concern by many people looking at the Chicago Bulls team. But as you see here, guys like Joakim Noah, Jimmy Butler, Taj Gibson, maybe Thibodeau had a huge hand in their development and just their whole mentality out there on the court. So, I mean, it's definitely not the same Chicago Bulls team that we're used to, and it's definitely showing. So, Chicago is a playoff team. Looking at on paper, they are. I mean, there's no reason why this team with multiple all-star talents should not be in the Eastern Conference playoff race. That's just ridiculous.
I'll tell you a team that's surprised this year. I think it's been a pleasant surprise. But if you look at the Charlotte Hornets, we talk about what Billy Donovan's doing in Oklahoma. I think they have to get to a 7-game series to call that season with the Thunder a success. We see what Stevens is doing with the Boston Celtics. But I look at the Charlotte Hornets and Steve Clifford, and I don't know if you saw the game the other night against the Sixers, but, man, he basically challenged those guys, pound the rock inside, score in the lane. That's exactly what they were able to do the other night against the Sixers. And you got a couple players putting up some triple-doubles. I mean, this is a team where if they're in good position, I think they're a 5 or 6 seed right now. I'm not sure. I have to pull it up. But to me, this is a team that I think they can shock some people. I'm not going to say they're going to take the Cavs to 7 and beat the Cavs if they were to play them, but this is a team I would not want to face in the playoffs.
No, I mean, this is one thing that stands out about this team, coached by Steve Clifford. I mean, they're a strong defensive team, and they're a team that's going to be dialed in and definitely apply that pressure on the defensive end. But I like that they have one of the more underrated point guards in the league. I don't think people are really recognizing what Kemba Walker, the season that he's put together this year. He's having an all-star quality type of season. He's one of the better point guards, but he gets overshadowed because he's in Charlotte, and it is the golden age of point guards in the league. So obviously guys like Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook are going to get that attention, but Kemba is just as dangerous as those guys. You're talking about a guy like Al Jefferson when he's healthy, one of the best low-post scorers in the league. I mean, Jeremy Lin, we can have all the jokes about postal insanity, what has he done, but as a backup guard in this league, Jeremy Lin is pretty solid. I mean,
giving him 10 to 12 points, giving him 10 to 12 a night.
That's not bad. Nicholas Batum is a talented guy. I mean, Marvin Williams, yes, he was the second overall pick a few years back, but he's obviously found his groove in Charlotte. So, I mean, this team is pretty solid, and you definitely don't want to face this type of squad in the first round because pretty much nobody's expecting them to have a deep run. They have nothing to lose. But when you have a dangerous player in a Kemba Walker, you have a solid backup. You have guys like Jeremy Lamb, Courtney Lee, Jeremy Lin. I mean, Frank Kaminsky provide them solid minutes as well. I mean, this team is definitely a threat.
Last one before I let you get out of here. As far as the Cleveland Cavs go, they have been kind of an enigma over the last week or two of the NBA season. And, look, you can talk about all the numbers that LeBron's putting up. We've talked about this ad nauseum. You wanted the players, you got the players. That's all on you, my friend. Now they're 6-4 in their last 10. Are you of the belief that the Cleveland Cavaliers just believe as soon as late April, May rolls around, they can just turn on that switch and, oh, by the way, they're going to be right there in the Eastern Conference Finals? Or does this team have some serious holes that you see, some flaws that can be exposed maybe against a Toronto, maybe against an Atlanta or a Charlotte or one of those teams?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think obviously, they're playing. They lost to Brooklyn, I mean, not too. I mean, you can't lose to Brooklyn in that squad. If you're a top team, you have dreams for the NBA.
Even without LeBron, you can't lose. Yeah, I hear you.
I mean, you have Kyrie, you have Kevin Love. That's just not. I mean, they lost to Houston. You can't lose to Houston either, as far as I'm concerned. So I think these guys, they have in their mind that they can just flip the switch on, but that's just not. That's not how it works. This team is not that. I mean, they're talented, but they're not that well-oiled of a machine to just click it on and off like that. And I think there are holes. I think offensively, I mean, I just can't get a feel for this team offensively. Either it's LeBron just bum rushing through the hole, Kyrie over dribbling the ball and putting up a ridiculous shot, and Kevin Love just in no man's land defensively. Let's not even talk about the issues that they have on that end, especially with Kevin Love. So, I mean, I just think this team really has no idea how to play a championship style of basketball right now. I think they're just utilizing their individual talents, which is great and has gotten them this far, which is a championship, Eastern Conference championship last year and a top seed again this year. So, but that's not going to be enough when you're facing teams like Golden State and San Antonio, who not only have the talent, but they actually have a system in that they're well versed in, and that's what Cleveland is missing right now.
And when you look at Cleveland right now, they're 53-22, and the Raptors are 50-24. If you look at the remaining games, I mean, just on the surface, for Cleveland, the Nets, the Hawks, the Hornets, the Bucks, the Pacers, the Bulls, the Hawks, the Pistons. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They probably have to go 6-2 in those games. And you look at the Raptors' schedule, the Grizzlies, the Spurs, the Hornets, the Hawks, the Pacers, and then they kind of close it out with 3 easy wins against the Knicks, the Sixers, and the Nets. So it's not as though Cleveland has clinched anything just yet. I'm just wondering, and the final one before I let you get out of here, and I appreciate the time as always. Do you think, I mean, look, they get rid of Blatt, they fire Blatt, and obviously there was a disconnect in that locker room. There was a disconnect from the ownership down to the head coach to the players, and I think David Blatt got a raw deal. I think they should have just let it play out, especially coming off a season in which they made it to the NBA Finals, and everyone seemed to be hurt, and LeBron played over his head, and that series still went to 6 games. I always believe that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and I think the move to fire Blatt was, I think it was a knee-jerk reaction to appease LeBron and kind of save face with LeBron and not have him opt out, or maybe have thoughts about going to Miami, say down the road. I just look at that firing as the turning point of the season, and really the turning point of the season in a negative way. And that's just the way I look at it. And I think they're missing Blatt a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on, Q. I mean, everything that Cleveland has done for the last couple of years has been to appease LeBron. I mean, the firing of Blatt, the trading away of Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love, which was ridiculous. Back then, I just really thought that was a bad deal. So you could sort of see, the Tyronn Lue effect not really having that big of an impact. I mean, you could say that these guys have actually had a drop-off since Lue took over, which I mean, you're asking a NBA viewer is not much of a surprise. With Blatt, he definitely got a raw deal. I mean, how do you lead a team to a championship series, take a team 6 games without your point guard, your star point guard? The following year, your team is atop the Eastern Conference again, and then he's let go. I mean, I just don't see the common sense in that. So Cleveland, like you said, 2 games ahead of Toronto. It's not set in stone for them right now. So I would hope they get it together mentally, because that's the biggest issue I have with them mentally, and there's just a lot of nonsense coming out of that locker room.
And good college and pro hoops coverage on Twitter by Jonathan, ARN_John Marshall. Of course, does a great job with the Abilene Reporter News and Tacos and Hoops down there in Texas, doing good stuff with radio. Appreciate it, pal. We'll chit-chat next week. Good stuff.
All right, Q. I'll let you, man. Take it.